Welcome everyone to episode 16 of Titan Teatime. I'm one of your hosts, Petter, and with me I have my co-host, James.
Well, how's it going?
And in this month's chapter of Titan Teatime, we are talking about the most recent chapter, chapter 133.
Sinners.
I think you and I are both on the we liked it train.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a very good build-up chapter. It gave us a lot to think about. And not to say the previous chapters didn't have that. I mean, we had some plenty like what's going on kind of moments, but it was pretty like set in stone. This is what's happening, and we were left to wonder where is the story going to go from here. And we still have that here, of course, but now we have a little more of an idea or premises that need to be answered, if you will, so we can take a little more educated guesses as to where the story could be going, what plot lines will be explored, etc., etc.
Yeah, and something I thought was interesting just in general with this chapter was how it kind of, in different ways, it had the characters bring up ideas that has kind of been like ideas among the fans that we've been speculating about, like in the fandom for a while. And I thought that was a lot of fun. For example, you know, if Eren wants them to stop him, like that type of thing, and like whether like why the Titan Shifters still have their Titan powers, like, and obviously toward the end, but we'll talk about it more in detail later. But the idea of the flying Titan, that's also been like obviously in the talks. But anyway, getting into the chapter, we are picking up pretty much right where we left off in last month's chapter.
Bombs. I just love that crate of bombs in the back.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah, that one's gonna play an important role, I'm sure. Somehow. Is it gonna be? Do you think it's gonna be tossed into Eren's Titan mouth, just like they did with the Rod Rice Titan?
You know, I don't know. Like, the thought came to my mind: what if they drop the bombs on the blimps? That would be what. What if they drop the bombs just in a certain part? Like, somehow Armin comes up with a educated guess of where Eren's or Zeke is on the Titan, so they just drop the bomb there. I don't know. I mean, it would be hilarious if they never used it. It's just there.
Actually, I would almost kind of like that if you know, that just to make it less predictable, because right now everyone's like, okay, these are going to be used for something.
True.
And I feel like maybe it would be like an Isayama kind of thing to do if it just doesn't play a part, just because just to have us speculate. And I don't know. But at the same time, I do kind of want it to do something. It feels like a Chekhov's gun, so it should be taken down off the wall at some point.
Yeah.
But anyway, Armin says something interesting here in this first scene about, like, if they can't stop Eren by talking to him, he will resort to you know, using his Colossal Titan to fight him or to attack him. That's what he said. When I think he talked to Peak. And only moments later, pretty much, they do talk to Eren, and they do learn that talking isn't an option. So I'm wondering now if Armin is going to actually stick to what he said before. Like,
that it being our last resort.
Yeah, basically because they're down to that now. Because they know now that Eren won't listen to them, you know? Yeah. So do you think he's gonna stick to actually nuking him with the Colossal Titan now?
So you bring up a good point. I think that whatever choice he makes, it's very, very critical, and I think it depends on how he's handling this situation as a leader. Because I think right now, in the previous episode, I mentioned that I thought it was going to go two ways. Either he would take it by the reins and do a good job, or have self-doubt. And I thought he'd have, and of the two, I thought self-doubt was more likely, but it looks like Armin's actually really the only one who's keeping his composure for the most part here. And not to say that everyone's lost it, but at the end of the whole vision thing, you see Armin, and he feels like he's He's the one like really thinking about this, where everyone else is like distraught. So I think he's weighing all his options at this point, but also he's conflicted. Like,
Oh
he's the
yeah.
leader, but at the same time he's best friends with Eren and Mikasa, and
Mm.
potentially killing Eren like that, is not, that's not what best friends do. I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess to be a good friend, maybe you would stop your friend. Um, so I don't know.
Mm.
I think I have more thoughts about that, but there's some other things I want to touch on before I say exactly what my complete thoughts are on that, if you don't mind.
Okay. And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead.
Uh, just real quick about that moment that Peak mentions the colossal titan. It almost felt like a jab
Oh
at
yeah, dude,
Armin.
I felt that too.
Like, it's like, wow, Peak, come
Oh.
on.
Yeah, and just the way she expresses it too is like she's like I don't have the thing in front of me right now, but like basically how she really goes into detail about how you really destroyed it and there was nothing left afterward. Like, are you gonna do that to Eren? Like,
Yeah, it's like your colossal titan could do it. It's like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. Well, I see. I sense a little salt there.
Yup.
No.
I bet.
Um, so that's Peak for you, I guess. I mean, I don't know how much of that is malicious or how much of that is just her being blunt and how awkward of a matter it is anyway.
Mm,
But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. But
yeah.
it's it's interesting to me, going back to how I feel Armin's handling this new role, is instead of kind of being like silent or be like, oh yeah, I'm a terrible person. He said, true, I could do that. Like, he's really weighing everything at this point, but also glancing at Mikasa, who, when he says true, I could totally do that, she's just like, what? Or
Right.
not, well, maybe not that much, but she's there's a bit of a shock on her. It's like, wow, I can't believe he would say that.
Right. Right.
And then he's like, well, that's our last resort, Mikasa. He didn't say Mikasa, but he's looking at her when he says that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think he's handling it really well. I agree with you. Like
Yeah.
right now, like for like having just been promoted to captain
Mm-hmm.
or commander, sorry, and obviously under these very 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 dire circumstances, I think he's doing an exceptional job. Actually, I'm very impressed.
Yeah. And so going on with that, he's also taking the time to listen to everybody, to have
Mm.
everybody understand each other. And as I was listening to last week's episode and thinking about Hanji's words that Armin had the ability to understand each other, it's interesting for me to see in this chapter, all of a sudden everyone's just like, especially with Reiner, they're just like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm a terrible person. You're a terrible person. You must have felt so bad. Oh my gosh. And there's all
Yeah.
this like
Oh yeah.
talking going on, this closure that we haven't really had before. And there's various reasons for that, but I think also could be that Armin kind of has created that sort of atmosphere. Not just Armin himself. I'm sure Reiner has, Reiner's efforts have not been in vain either. But I think
Mm.
Armin is definitely kind of helping that situation in a way.
Yeah, because comparing Armin to the previous commanders, he's much more of a sensitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a person like that has an easier time to influence others to kind of share their emotions as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
Totally.
I, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, there's different types of leaders, but I think Armin's leadership is definitely more of the understanding, sensitive, but also clever and witty in that sense.
Absolutely. Mm.
So the next point with Armin is it goes into the final thoughts I have about him, or somewhat final, is that during this whole time he has been thinking like, what is Eren's action? What are Eren's true motivations? And when I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. When Reiner brings up the fact that I think I know what Eren is going through, and then they have that vision, and then Reiner, well before the vision, like I think Armin says, yeah, I totally see what you're saying because I've been thinking the same thing. Why do we still have our powers? one, it goes to your point where that's basically what the readers were thinking. We were thinking the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
why do they have their powers? Is we even said last week or at least I think I did, is Aaron trying to lead them to a certain place or to get them to do something.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, Armin's thinking about that, and then we have this vision where Aaron basically shuts that down to a degree. I mean, he basically confirms that, yes, I want you, or I'm letting you do what you want, but I'm gonna do what I want, and you just have to fight me in order to do that. You have to kill me in order to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where it comes to my point with Armin. He has to accept the fact that Aaron wants him and the rest of the Alliance to kill him, or deny that and fight against, like, fight to keep Aaron alive somehow, with while also, not while also stopping the Titans, which I think that may be an impossible task. I think when push comes to shove, I think they're gonna have to kill him in some way. But then again, this is supposed to be a grand finale, and it would be pretty epic if I found some way to, quote unquote, save Aaron while also stopping the Titans. So anyway, that's my grand spiel about Armin I wanted to get out. And, yeah, I know it was really long, but I had steps in my thought process, and I couldn't step over them without touching on them.
No, but I totally understand.
I don't know if I heard what your answer was on your original question.
No, but so, well, first of all, I definitely understand your way of thinking, and I think it, in the perfect world, they would be able to stop Aaron without killing him and whatnot. However, I'm also thinking, hypothetically, if they did that, if they did stop Aaron, but keeping him alive, what would that really give them? I feel like Aaron, as long as he's alive, he's still gonna want to do what he's doing right now. Or the way I see it anyway.
I do see what you're saying, and I agree with that. It touches into, well, I'll bring that up again later, but okay. I think there's like a theory that it's coming to my mind that I mentioned a while ago that I want to hear your thoughts on, but I think I'll save it for a little later.
All right. Well, but yeah, basically about Aaron, like, he's going to keep moving forward for as long as he's breathing.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And so I think he has to be killed. I don't think there's any other way. And I'd like to think that Armin thinks the same way about that I do. but I mean, who knows? I mean, I might not even be right about this, but I feel like, I mean, obviously, since I'm me, I feel like I am right about this.
Well, yeah, no, that's totally fair.
I think Armin would also see it that way. So I think, and based on what he said before they had their conversation with Aaron, I do think he's going to stick to that. Is what I'm going to choose to believe right now, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we can never really know until we've read all the chapters. But I do think that what you're saying is probably the most likely scenario. And honestly, I'm torn. I think part of me is Armin. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess we still don't know what Armin thinks, but part of me is the Armin that believes, okay, well, we have to kill Aaron now. That's the only way. He's basically telling us to kill him. And then the other part of me is Mikasa, who's like, no, we cannot kill Aaron. He's so important to me. So it's a conflict, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, at this point where whether Aaron is wanting them to kill him or not, it seems to be the only way.
Right. As tragic as that is.
But then again, okay, so they stop him. They kill Aaron. They stop the Titans, and then what? The world kills the people. I mean, well, they say that stop it. Don't, or no one will attack Parody for centuries or whatever they say. I mean, I guess the problem is you can't prove that. So I don't know.
But I think it makes sense. What Armin says to Aaron there, stop now, and it's going to be fine anyway because the terror that Eren has struck onto the world will probably make it so that no one is going to dare attack Parody again, because this happened right after Marley came and attacked Parody, you know?
True.
And
True.
they're like, okay, if we do the same thing Marley just
True.
did,
Well,
you know?
well, and it wasn't just Marley either. There was a few international navies that
I think so too, yeah,
there,
precisely.
I believe so. That's a good point. So maybe
Right.
yeah, maybe Parody is safe. They just need to, they would just have to stop. But again,
Yeah.
Aaron brings up his point. It was like, well, I'm not. My plans aren't short term. I'm thinking about the long term, the
Yeah.
eternity.
And in a way, I do respect him for that. Like,
Yeah. I
but
do
at the
too.
same time, damn.
Yeah.
You
I
can't
know.
just kill the whole world, dude.
I know. I know.
But yes, yes. That's that's super interesting.
Do you mind if I ask you a question real quick?
Of course. Or go
Or
ahead.
I guess it's just, I guess it's more of a comment just about Levi. I think it's hilarious that the first thing that he brings to the table is like, let's kill Zeke.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
dude, totally.
I thought it was hilarious. Like that
Yeah.
man has one thing on his mind, and it's killing Zeke. You know,
Yeah.
they could be talking about like, let's go have some pizza. It's like, well, I think we should kill Zeke. It's like, what? Does it bring the conversation? No, but this is important. I mean, it was important that he brought that up because they didn't think about that. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. He's kind of using it like a battery of sorts. Oh, that makes sense.
Well, something that I thought of when I read this chapter the first time was that, well, it wasn't perfectly clear in the previous chapter, but I think what is hinted at that happened kind of behind the scenes or between the scenes in the previous chapter was that Yelena told everybody about Zeke's actual plan. That Zeke's plan was to sterilize all Eldians. Because
Oh, and they didn't know that. Oh, you're right.
there was no way they could have known that before the previous chapter.
Yeah, you're right.
But then there was that one scene in the previous chapter where Yelena told him, or she was like, "Well, can you now confess that Zeke was right?" And obviously, for us readers, we knew that since many chapters ago. But the group that we've been following had no way of knowing that was Zeke's plan. So it wasn't until they were on the ship with Yelena that the core group learned of Zeke's actual plan. And I would like to think that after learning that maybe Levi would be more focused on killing Eren instead of Zeke. But I guess at the same time, like, well, I don't know. He
I
seems
don't
to
know
be
about
just
that.
as set on Zeke as he used to be.
Yeah. But even before reading this chapter, I don't know if that would change his thoughts on Zeke per se. I mean, because I think we established that both like ideas were bad. Sure, like Yelena was like, well, it's Zeke's is better. It's like, yeah, I mean, I guess better than mass genocide, sure, but it's still that's still not a very good, very childish plan, if you will.
Of course, of course.
So I don't know. I mean, and Levi isn't so much he doesn't care about the plans per se. I mean, he just he's just out in a way for revenge sounds like the wrong word. Maybe that is what it is, but like, to make it up to Irvin and everybody, his comrades
Right.
or whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean he was personally betrayed by Zeke too.
True,
So
true, true.
so
So
that
I guess there is a bit of
that
revenge.
is fair.
But I think it's good that we're getting Zeke back in the story, even just by word of mouth. Because while I don't think this necessarily proves that he's alive, his presence is probably still in paths, in a sense. But his body is, according to their theory, his body is somewhere on the founding Titan, or Aaron's monstrosity Titan, supposedly. And they're
Possibly, yeah.
one of their goals is to kill Zeke, to kill that body, which they believe would sever the Aaron's ties with Ymir.
Yeah, and that thought process makes a lot of sense.
It does.
It's and it has been a theory in the fandom for a bit as well.
Well, there was that whole theory that, oh, what if, before we even saw what Aaron Titan was. It's like, oh, what if Zeke is on Aaron's I it's so hard for me to say shoulder and soldier. I don't know
Shoulder.
why. Shoulder, soldier. I always mix them.
Gotcha.
Shoulder. Maybe Zeke is on Aaron's shoulder. I remember hearing that, or is clinging onto his back somehow.
Right.
But this seems a little more likely, where he's not necessarily clinging. It's more like he's trapped.
Yeah, and that makes so much more sense because he doesn't want to do what Aaron's doing
Yeah.
in the first place.
Exactly. And I remember that being one of the counterpoints to it. It's like, well, he doesn't want this. He wouldn't be there. But
Right.
yeah, he doesn't want this, but he's stuck.
So if he is with Aaron, he's absolutely stuck. I don't think he's in paths. That's something that I feel pretty strongly about. I don't think he's in paths. I think he's either dead or he's stuck in Aaron's Titan somehow. Like, I don't think there's any other options besides those two.
The reason why I say path is because I thought maybe his conscience had to be there so Aaron could control Ymir. But then again, I guess that's not necessarily the case. So it could just be he has to be touching the body, and that's all. So in that case, Zeke's body could be acting similar to how, a regular body transforms into a Titan, where everything around it is, there's hot steam, and you can get burned or even worse, but the body inside the Titan is fine, right? Or even regenerates. So what if Zeke is having that same thing happens to him, where he's inside the body of the Titan? Again, there's really no fleshy part, but maybe it's somewhere around there. He's inside the body of the Titan, or Warhammer crystal, whatever, what have you. So his body is intact. So when the transformation happened, there wouldn't have been a destruction of his body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking beforehand, when people thought he was dead, it's like, there's no way he would have survived the blast. But I guess we can't say that for sure,
Right. Yeah. There could have been a way for him to survive if Aaron kind of, quote unquote, took him in.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely a possibility, especially now after they've kind of theorized it in the manga itself.
Right. I love that. I love it. I mean, you mentioned this earlier, but it's so great when they start theorizing about people, things that people were theorizing. It's like great. It's like, oh my gosh, we're thinking the same thing.
It's so fun.
But then you're like, wait a minute. Does that mean we're right, or does that mean that we're just horribly wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, it remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen, you're right.
But yeah, moving on a little bit, there was one thing I wanted to mention in this first scene as well that brought me to a couple of tears the first time I read this chapter, was seeing Connie express that he understands now how Reiner and the others were feeling during their time in Paradis and all that. To find, especially, having it come from him, because he's been the one who's definitely been holding the hardest of the grudge toward them, and and for him to realize that, I mean, especially now that he's kind of done similar things they have, he understands them and he knows the pain that they've been going through. It was very impactful for me.
I feel like this scene right here with Jean, Connie, and Reiner is almost a continuation of the campfire scene, a few chapters back, where Jean kind of freaks out at Reiner.
Totally.
And I think at the time we were like, yeah, this was good for Jean to get that off his chest, and good for Reiner to get that off his chest. But I think this is the conclusion of that, like the ultimate understanding, like I was saying earlier, this kind of environment has created. And I don't know, I'm glad we got this. I'm glad it just didn't end at Jean being angry at them and not being able to forgive them, because I think I even said, it's like, oh, I totally understand why he can't forgive them. But, I'm glad that, for me, Jean was able to say he didn't have any right to blame him or whatever. He kind of felt sorry for the way he acted. And I thought it was a wholesome moment.
This one, absolutely. And comparing it to the one that you mentioned by the campfire in chapter 127, I think Jean I think he acted out of line, even though it was probably kind of good for him ultimately. I think he acted
Mm-hmm.
out of line because he he wasn't that much better than Reiner even back then. Uh, they're all sinners, as the name of this chapter is.
Mm-hmm.
The attack on Liberia was not good.
No,
this
I
the
mean,
things they did, like that our protagonists, did there was awful.
yeah,
Uh,
and that's the
so,
thing about war. I mean,
mm,
when you look at it at a kind of, I guess neutral may not be the right word, but you stand back and look at it.
mm,
There aren't good guys in a war really. I mean, at least a
yeah,
war complicated like this, where both sides think the other is evil. Um, you know, so sometimes it's just a
mm,
little more complicated than that.
mm,
And with this, it's like, yeah, they did terrible things.
for sure. But seeing both Connie and also Jean be a bit more, well, understanding of Reiner and his comrades now is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned also briefly at the beginning of the episode, we get Reiner's speculation about Eren, that Eren might want them to stop him,
Mm-hmm.
and followed by Armin kind of questioning why they still have their Titan powers. Like those two things happening right here was very nice to see in the manga and not just in the fandom.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm. And obviously, we do get an explanation, at least for Armin's question,
Mm-hmm.
once they get into paths and speak to Eren. Should we move on to that bit? It kind of happens around this part here.
Yeah. I say let's go on to paths.
Yes. First of all, I really enjoyed just seeing what each of these characters had to say to Eren. They
Yeah.
don't all speak like at the same amount. I think Armin definitely talks the most, but Jean, Connie, and Mikasa also has some things to say, and I think and as well as Levi a little bit. But it's just nice to see these characters that are the closest to Eren kind of speak their mind and kind of plead to him to come back to them.
Right. Yeah. I think the two for me that hit the most were Connie and Mikasa. I mean,
Yeah.
Armin's was pretty important too, but Armin's kind of always been reaching out to Eren from the very beginning, so
Mm.
um, it almost kind of felt his screaming was of desperation. But anyway, Connie's and Mikasa. Connie, I always had beef with Connie for the way he had held a grudge against Eren because of Sasha's death, and to the extent it was Eren's fault because they had to save or go and grab Eren. But at the
Mm.
same time, like Eren, like Connie said, was distraught about that death. I mean,
Yeah.
when she said bread or no meat before
Yes.
dying, that really got him. I
Yeah.
still can't believe that's a thing. Um,
Yeah.
I, he was really hurt by that, and so
Mm.
I didn't necessarily like how Connie was treating it or how he held that grudge. But then again, I mean, Aaron went on to destroy Marley, and who knows how much more he'll destroy. So maybe his grudge was justified in some sense, but at the same time, he says that you know I never considered your position. I feel I regret that.
Mm.
So I kind of like that openness that we're seeing there, even if
Absolutely.
even if it could be a bit of kind of desperation,
Well, I mean,
maybe.
everyone's desperate. The world is being destroyed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense. And I think Connie has had a really nice development since the rumbling started. I
Hmm.
think he's grown so much.
There's been some interesting points or interesting moments for him.
Right, yeah, and he's at a point now where he's able to understand people who aren't necessarily completely on his side or whatever, or haven't always been. He's able to understand other people's perspectives in a way that he previously was completely incapable of doing. And
Hmm.
I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. and then the other thing was Mikasa.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of, I mean, she might have said this earlier. I'm not 100%. I couldn't remember, and my very brief looking back didn't yield any results. But
Mm.
her saying that she wants to share his burdens, or
Oh yeah.
the burdens of your sins, and we're all guilty of the same sins. So I want you to come back. Obviously, she wanted him to come back, but hearing the fact that she wants to, share in the burdens, it it kind of reminds me of someone who very much loves someone. They want to be there for that person.
Mm.
Um, it's kind of like a confession in a way. I wouldn't go so far as to say it is a confession, but in a way, it's kind of it's something deep with it. At the very least, a family that
Yeah.
we've always known that they've at least had some sort of a family relationship.
Hmm.
But it is good to see Mikasa talk about this now, because for a while she's been a bit silent about some of her real feelings, and she's kind of like been mulling those over. It's like, how do I really feel about this? Are these my own feelings, or is this just the you know Ackerman bloodline that's controlling me,
Yeah.
which is a bunch of garbage. Like, that's not true. Um,
Yeah. I mean, for
Never
most of
was a
the
thing.
series, she's been very quiet about her feelings.
Well,
There's really only a handful of situations where she's really been speaking her mind, and like, or well, not necessarily only speaking her mind, but like really showing how she feels vocally, you know.
I think since I kind of disagree, because I felt like before the Marley arc she had more moments of it, but I think because the spotlight was on the people, she didn't get a chance as much to show that. But obviously the beginning of the manga, when before Eren transforms, she has that incredible moment, and then returns to Shiganshina, she has that moment as well.
Mm.
Um, I think that when the Marley's arcs happened, because there's so many people to focus on, you couldn't really get Mikasa didn't have that spotlight as much, and
For sure, for sure.
we didn't see those that conflict within her. Well, we did see the conflict, but we didn't see her talking it about her feelings, really. Even the part where she probably could have with Louise. Was that the girl with the scarf?
Louise, yeah.
Louise, the number one fangirl.
Yep.
Um, that moment could have been a great point for her to say something, but she just takes the scarf and goes. And I don't know. I feel like it's been building up to this moment, and now we're finally kind of. I mean, I think it's still building up technically, but I think we're finally starting to see, what she really thinks, especially after the whole,
Mm.
Eren Mikasa table scene. Where, wow, that sounds dirty. The
Uh,
Armin was there too. Wait a minute.
yeah.
Um,
And Gabby was there too.
oh no. So Aaron, when he gets mad, and Mikasa, or he tells her what he supposedly really thinks.
Yeah.
She's from that point on, she's really been like thinking like, are these feelings true or whatever. But anyway,
Mm.
I just wanted to bring that point up. I thought it was good to hear that.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I agree. Mikasa, like the things she had to say here was great. Absolutely, and she has throughout the series. She's had a handful of places where she has expressed herself in words, in like or, her feelings. How she feels, but ultimately, for the most part, Mikasa, ever since the beginning of the story, with the slight exception of the Trost arc, but I'll get to that in a little bit. She's been mostly a character that I feel like it's been like the best way to kind of read her hasn't been necessarily from her words, but from her face expressions. Because she hasn't
Yeah.
really been expressing herself vocally a lot of the time. The Trost arc was different because I feel like after she learned that Eren died, or well, presumably died, in the Trost arc, she grew a surprising bit during that, and like grew into kind of a leader kind of role, and took charge to go with her other cadets and destroy the Titans.
Although technically, when I think she was using that as a way to forget, and then remember she lost gas and then fell down, and then she's like, "Well, I'm gonna die."
That's true.
And then she's like,
That's
"No,
true.
Eren would want me to die," or
She
whatever.
she definitely. I mean, yeah, she definitely isn't like a leader person, but I still think like the way she acted during that arc and during that bit isn't something we've seen her do since then. Like the moment Eren came back to life, technically, sort of, she kind of reverted back into being this kind of more shut down, more closed off person who expresses
Hmm.
herself more with her face than her words.
Yeah, I agree to the extent that is how she expresses herself, but I don't know if I see her as a leader.
No, no,
Um,
oh, I don't either.
I don't think the Trust arc actually shows her as a leader either. Just more of like you know, she rallies everybody up, but again, I said that was more of a distraction for herself,
Fair, fair.
because she believed Eren had died.
Hmm.
I think people acknowledge how skilled she is, and she's Levi in a lot of ways. They're
Hmm.
both skilled people, but I don't know if they should be leaders.
No,
Uh,
oh no, no, no. I,
you know,
I,
and
I definitely never said that. I think she should be a leader.
well, but I know you never didn't say that, but I don't think her outburst that she had there was out of her character, is what I'm trying to say.
No,
And
oh no, no, definitely not, definitely not. But she
so,
hasn't really been that way since then. Like that's the only time that she's taken charge and actually inspired people to actually go and do something because she was crucial in that moment. I think you could argue that if she hadn't done what she did there, they may not have been able to take back trust. I think that's a very good possibility.
although it helps to have how many feet was Aaron? How his Titan, it helps to have a Titan on
Like
your side.
15, 16, whatever meter, yeah.
Yeah.
15 meter. Yeah, of course, but still, I think the chart that she was able to go like to get her and all the cadets over to the I guess the place where they get to refill their gas or whatever, if I recall, that was I think that was a crucial thing to do, and they had to do it. They had to like she had to get everybody's spirits back up because everyone was just distraught at the time, Armin especially. But actually, I was going to mention this exact bit of the manga in a little thing that comes up pretty soon here in the chapter, so I might as well do that.
Okay.
When they actually do get to speak to Eren here later here in the
Mhm.
scene in Paths, and he says to them that basically the only way for this to end is to fight
Mhm.
because he's going to keep doing what he's doing. He's free to do that, and they are free to stop him. And when their desires collide, well, they're going to have to fight.
Mhm.
And of course, that's going to be what it's going to come down to. To fight. That's
Right.
been in chapter 6. Eren in the flashback when Eren and Mikasa were with the human tracker guys.
Mhm.
That's when Eren said to Mikasa, "If we don't fight, we die. If we win, we live. And if we don't fight, we can't win."
Right.
Uh, that was the first time back in chapter 6, and then in chapter 7 was the moment we just talked about when Mikasa called back to that pretty much after
Mhm.
she had recalled it. Uh, and she did that on the rooftops in Trost and was able to get everyone going. She said that again there, and again more recently in chapter 106, Mikasa and Eren kind of separately kind of mumbled that phrase to themselves as well.
Right. Yeah.
And here we are again, fight. That's what has to happen. And yeah, I feel like it makes perfect sense for this story to have to, you know, end with that, and especially for Eren to kind of advocate for that.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting you bring that up because when Aaron said that he was a kid, just like how he's seen here with Ymir,
Yeah.
and going a little bit back to where they first hear Aaron and see him off in the distance, and they're
Yeah.
running towards him. There's a moment where they see Aaron. Mikasa sees Aaron as younger,
Mm.
and I don't know. There's something about that really hits home for me. I don't know why. I think it's because like maybe this is the Eren that Mikasa knows. I don't know. Not to say that the Eren you see isn't what is real. All I'm saying is that it feels like it was very impactful for her to see him like that. But it also makes me recall the first chapter of the manga, and it gets me thinking about that time where before Eren wakes up, he sees Mikasa as an older adult. And so I wonder if towards the end we're going to have another Paths Realm type of situation where Eren, younger Eren, when he's like this, sees Mikasa with the scarf, and she says her line. I forget what the line is.
See you later, I think.
Oh, see you later, or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think it could make sense of that whole scene if what Eren is seeing is just him in the Paths Realm. He's seeing Mikasa in the Paths Realm, older Mikasa in the Paths Realm. So that would mean she had to put on the scarf eventually, but only time will tell with that. Right. So anyway, that was my thoughts on that bit.
That's an interesting idea, that since it was younger Eren who kind of dreamt that he would have that vision through the eyes of his younger self as well, although in the paths. That was an interesting thought or idea that you brought up. I don't necessarily. I mean, definitely could happen, but I don't think it has to happen because dreams or memories.
No, I don't think it necessarily has to happen like that either. It just
gotcha.
It's just a connection. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh, does that mean that's what's happening, or is it just a memory that Eren will see eventually? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No, my guess would be that it's probably through his real eyes or whatever, like in the real world with his older eyes, I would assume. But I think that was still definitely an interesting thought. And there's also then the thought or the thing about in the first chapter when Eren does have that dream in the manga and he sees Mikasa, or presumably Mikasa with a scarf saying "See you later." She has like her hair looks like it did when it was a bit longer, like not as long as it was when she was very little, but longer than it is now. So I'm thinking.
I don't know. I think Mikasa's hair has grown since the Marley arc. I think it might be
barely, like slightly, but like.
I think it might be pretty close.
I don't think so, actually. But
fair.
I'm thinking Isayama might retcon that,
I mean, he could. Yeah, he totally could.
I totally and besides, it's a dream, and dreams can be, you could remember things slightly off and things like that. So, you know. I wouldn't mind it if Isayama retconned it because I think it would still work due to it being a dream. So yeah, I'm fine with that, and I'm very excited to see if and how that dream will come to play, and how we'll see it. That's like one of the big things.
So, really quick, moving on to where they are running towards Eren. There's a moment where a group of them run, and then it's like Levi, Reiner, and Peak just like appear in front of them. It's like it's so they run off, and Reiner, Peak, and not Zeke. I meant Levi, and I think I've been getting them confused. This discussion, they.
Oh yeah.
They're in the background, and then they're running, and then all of a sudden they're in front of them.
What the?
Like what?
wait.
What's the point behind that?
Okay, so I was talking to some people on Discord, and I think they tried to explain this thing to me, but I didn't really understand it. But now that you explain it here, I totally see that. Like, yeah, they're running toward where Eren is, and then suddenly I guess they stop in their tracks, and they're at the same place as Levi, Peak, and Reiner, and also Ymir is there. Ymir is now next to Eren as well.
Right. It's like they got closer somehow, but I don't know. It's weird. I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean, if anything, other than maybe like space is not real in this area. Like, you can run as far as you want, but you're not going to go anywhere unless
Mm.
Eren and Ymir say so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's safe to assume they, like Eren or Emir or both, kind of have that kind of power in this realm
Hmm.
to do weird shit like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's past, so I'm not like creeped out or like incredibly perplexed why it happened. It's just,
Mm.
well, that's odd. Is there a reason for that or something
Yeah.
like that? But I'm not gonna lose sleep over it or anything.
Right, right. But that's still definitely an interesting thing, though. Even though it might not mean anything, it's still interesting, and
Hmm.
it's not anything that I really noticed on my first two reads.
But what I did notice, what I did notice
Mm-hmm.
is Ymir and Eren standing next to each other with those pupilless, dark, sullen eyes.
Exactly.
The same eyes that Ymir had, or at least that we saw
Mm.
in the vision, right before. It was either, I think it was a chapter before, or no, maybe in the same chapter that Eren transforms. I can't remember, but
Yeah, it was the same chapter that
same
Eren, at
chapter.
least when he started to transform. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the walls started crumbling. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, basically Ymir's backstory. I
Yeah,
think
Ymir's backstory.
everyone in that backstory had eyes like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, do you think this particularly means anything, or is this just another sort of, symbolic?
We are one.
We are devoting ourselves of all emotions, and we are one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see it being something like that. I don't think it means. I don't think it's necessarily anything deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a cool aesthetic, I think.
Yeah.
And Coffee Life on Discord. She's in our Discord server,
Oh yeah. Yes.
and I was also a guest on the You for Big Girls podcast together with her
Oh.
a couple months back. She and I were guesting at the same in the same episode. But anyway, she pointed out that we have actually seen Eren with these with these eyes in one of the flashbacks where he where he killed the traffickers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting as well.
Yeah. That's really really spooky.
But yeah, dude, it looks so spooky.
Is it just his? Is it just a style Isayama goes for, or is that something he's hinting at, or is there something behind that? And I wonder. To me, it goes if it means something, which I'm not saying it does, but I'm just pontificating here.
Hmm?
If it does mean something, could it be that Eren and Ymir have a huge connection, bigger than maybe what we thought, in that somehow Eren is Ymir reincarnated. But then again, she's right here, so that probably wouldn't make sense. But
Hmm.
there is the whole chapter connection with, to you 2,000 years in the future and to you 2,000 years ago or whatever the two chapter. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's that connection. So does that mean that they're much deeper than that? Or another thing it could be is that Ymir is controlling Eren somehow, to match her own thoughts or her own desires of just ending the world. Or, there's a lot of ors. Bear with me.
Yeah.
Or, what if the bug vegetation thing that connected to Ymir is the one kind of pulling the strings in this situation? Not necessarily as like a main villain. Whoa, it was my master plan all along, but more of just a force of nature that
Mm.
doesn't think intelligent or doesn't think the same way humans think. It just thinks about, okay, I'm purging you, be
Yeah.
gone, kind of a thing. So I don't know. Those are just options of what it could possibly mean. I'm not
Mm.
saying those are for sure or even likely. I'm just if there was a meaning behind it.
Mm. Yeah, that centipede spine creature actually came to mind for me as well when I read this chapter, in two different ways. Firstly, when Eren started transforming, after they got back out of paths, and when his head and body were reattached.
I think you're about to say something that I was going to bring up too, so please keep going.
Cool. Okay. Well, so that kind of like the spine that supposedly came or like reattached Aaron's head and body, it felt like maybe that was that thing, and the other, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it wasn't. I don't know really anything, but it resembled it regardless. And
Well, really quick before you go on,
oh yeah,
do you remember how when we were first discussing that chapter, I was kind of like really confused about that spine and how is it pulled out of the body?
I
Or
do remember.
yeah,
We spent a lot of time on it.
we did. Probably weren't too happy about it, but we did talk about it. And so but that did come to mind. It's like, well, what if that's the spine creature potentially,
Right.
or is some sort of manifestation of it? Anyway, keep going.
Right. And so the other thing, this chapter that, I mean, I could have thought of it even earlier, but I think it was especially when Armin drew Aaron's Titan form on the floor in the plane.
Yeah, that's whatever.
Like,
Yeah, there you go.
seeing Aaron, or seeing Armin, or well, basically seeing that drawing, made me think that, well, Aaron's current Titan form sort of also resembles that thing, because all Titans we've seen so far have been in some way humanoid, right?
Right.
Like more or less. But Aaron's Titan right now, it's like a centipede. You know, it's an insect
Right.
sort of thing, and definitely resembles that thing.
I had the very same thought. The funny thing is, I remember I was reading last chapter and that thought came to mind that maybe it was 2 chapters ago. I can't remember. A similar thought came to mind. So I looked back to when we see the spine thing in Aaron's head. So the reason why I didn't bring it up is because it was Aaron's head, not his torso. Whereas the Titan has that torso. So I was like, oh, maybe that kind of disproves the theory that, it's the spine thingy taking on a form. But then again, maybe that's just how the Titan formed for some reason, but it's
Right.
still resembling the centipede thing.
Exactly. So that's not me saying, or actually, I don't know. I don't know anything. That spine centipede Titan power granter, whatever,
Long title.
whatever you want to call it. It's probably the biggest unknown in the series at this point.
Right now, yeah.
It's impossible to really know anything about it. Just because it's so mysterious. I kind of like it being mysterious, and I probably wouldn't necessarily want it to be revealed anything about it, unless it makes sense to. But it's hard to speculate about. But at least visually, those were definitely some things.
There's definitely some connection there.
Yeah, for sure. And it was fun that we both picked up on it.
But yeah, totally. I'm glad you brought it up. I personally, I would like to see the backstory for that. I think it would really be really cool, especially has a good idea for it.
Well, yeah, sure.
But I'm not putting my bets on it, or I'm not having my expectations set to that. I'd be fine with it remaining a mystery for the most part. But I do think that it would be really cool for the story to see its origin, if done well.
Maybe.
Which I really haven't been too disappointed with how he's done things, but I guess people disagree with me on that.
I mean, I remember before we got the Ymir backstory, I was saying that I would have liked for that to be, remained a mystery as well. So I could be wrong again. Maybe we will get, the details of this creature or thing, whatever it is.
We shall see.
We shall see.
One more thing I'll bring up is earlier I said that I was saving something about Aaron's intentions or whatever. I think that ties into a theory that, what if Ymir is controlling Aaron's desire for freedom manipulating that into doing what he wants, or even the spine thing, the centipede spine, manipulating that as well. Now, I'm not saying that's like for sure or like that. I feel like I always have to preface that because some people take, as soon as I mention that, they're like, oh, he believes this. It's like, no, 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 no. I don't necessarily like believe that. I'm just putting it up as an option.
Right, right.
I just want people to think. That's all. Not to say people don't think. That sounded very bad, demeaning.
You're just tripping on your words at this point.
I really am. I just want people to, whatever. I'll just stop.
No, no. Well, I mean, I think we know what you mean. Playing devil's advocate in some capacity. Yes, we get back out of paths, and everyone's a little dizzy or distraught.
Yeah. Rough night at the club.
Exactly.
Something interesting is that Reiner says, well, it looks like my prediction was right.
Mm.
It took me a while to process this, and I want to hear your thoughts. Does he mean that he still thinks that Eren wants them to stop him? Is that what he's saying here?
I think that's what he's saying. Whether or not he's right is a different story. But as far as Reiner, like from Reiner's perspective, because what he said before they went into the paths was that he thought that Eren might want them to kill him, and now he seems to think he was right about that, which I think it's a fair assumption, but it's not necessarily right because I think
right.
Well, I mean, it has been a pretty popular fan theory for a while that Eren has been doing this whole thing in order to kind of unite the world against him to become the enemy to everybody.
I know I've said it before.
Right, and I mean, yeah, a lot of people have, and maybe that's right. And if Reiner is right here, then I think it's definitely a possibility. But at the same time, in like looking at what Eren told them in the past in this chapter, I don't think that's the only way to interpret it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's also totally possible that Eren legitimately wants to destroy the whole world to make Paradis a free place, and that's what he wants most of all, potentially. And if that's the case, then Reiner isn't really right here.
Yeah, it was just interesting to me. Like he comes out of it. I mean, they obviously stressed out, but he's like, "Well, I was right." It's like, what? I guess maybe. I mean, good for Reiner for being optimistic on that. But hey, I mean, maybe he is right. Maybe that is Eren's intention, but it really wasn't the vibe I was getting at that point.
I mean, hell, like the more I can see my boy Reiner believing in himself, the happier I'll be.
Hey, you know what? It's true. It's true.
So go Reiner.
Go Reiner. Yeah. Yes. Go Reiner.
So yeah, moving on to the boat, like not the flying boat, but the floating boat.
The steamboat.
Yes. So yeah, I think we have some very nice conversations here between Kiyomi and Annie. It's especially nice, I think, to see Kiyomi's kind of point of view here. She admits to having been kind of greedy in her past, but ultimately she regrets it. And also, like, while I'm speaking about Kiyomi here, like when a little bit later in the scene when Gabby and Falco come up and talk to them, how they the kids kind of they come up with this idea about the Flying Titan and whatever. To which Kiyomi is like, yeah, you should do it. Like, because at this point, Kiyomi is like, anything that could help save the world is a good idea. Like, better to do something than to do nothing. And that, because that's kind of how she started off. She didn't do as much as she could have been doing initially. But at this point, she has really realized that was a mistake.
Right. And not only do I think that is important for Kiyomi's character, and if this is one of the last times we see her, that I think that was a good way to end it off with her. But I think that was incredibly important for Annie because her mindset at this point, or at least in the last chapter, I felt like was, I just want to live my life peacefully. I've done some terrible things, and I just want peace. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of her running away from her mistakes, from her regrets and whatnot. But then Kiyomi bringing up the fact if there's, she'd want to do this rather than living with any more regrets. And I think that speaks to Annie. If she were just to run away, she would have to live with that regret. Instead of this way, she feel like she can atone in a way.
Right. Yeah, and I thought that was also a really nice page when you kind of see Annie realizing how much she really cherishes the friendships with her comrades.
Yeah.
And how
sure.
she kind of sees that she should help them, And with her character specifically, I mean, initially it made perfect sense for her to not want to do to go where they were going.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
And specifically with her character, but at this point, I thought it was really beautiful to see her come to terms with this in this chapter here, and it's what Kiyomi says to Annie to kind of before Annie kind of realizes that. Kiyomi says, "I wonder why can't we notice until we've lost it already? The feelings, not of profit and loss, but only of respect for others." I thought that was kind of clumsily expressed. It doesn't. It's hard to follow along with what that means.
It's hard for me to understand. Yeah.
Yeah. The fan translation that I read before that translation makes it far more easy to understand, and it reads, "Strange. We don't realize it until it's gone. That more important than profit and loss is respect for others."
Oh, okay.
Which I think is a beautiful sentiment, first of all, but also it's much more easy to understand.
Yeah.
When it's expressed that way.
Maybe this is a bit more waxing poetic in this one than in the fan translation. But I appreciate the clarity was there for fan translation.
For sure. And I hope when it comes out on physical volume, I hope it's closer to the fan translation, honestly. Mm-hmm. Because I know that they sometimes change up some stuff for the physical releases. So I hope it's not put the way it was in the translation here, because it was very hard to follow along with what that meant. But anyway, I thought it was a really nice thing she said, and that was what helped Annie, kind of realize what she did. So that was really nice.
Yeah, and she thought about her father. She thought about all the people and her comrades, and then she thought about Armin.
Yeah.
The ship is sailing!
Yeah, the last you saw of Armin.
Yeah.
Waving goodbye.
Waving goodbye. Before we move on, I said at last episode that in order for Annie to get back in the story, I thought that she would have to meet her parents because I thought that would change it. But I also said that Kiyomi could do some talking as well. At least I believe that's what I said.
Maybe.
That might have just been in Discord that I said that. If I misspoke, I'm sorry about that. But I did think that those are the only two real ways I could see that it coming back. So it's good to see that Kiyomi is the one to basically get her on her feet and push her in the right direction. So I appreciate that. And then another thing I totally maybe got correct is Falco Flying. Potentially. We'll see.
Right.
But still,
yes.
I mean, it was laughed at. People thought it was ridiculous.
Hey, but you laughed at it as well.
I did laugh at it as well. It's true.
Everyone was laughing at this. The whole fandom was joking around about this shit.
Right. I even said like, I'm kind of joking, but part of me really wishes this to happen.
Right.
And I really do want to see this. I want to see Falco flying in the air, and I guess potentially Annie joining with him. I don't know when she'll eat his wings or feathers or whatever to gain that flight. But anyway, it's cool. I think it's a really cool thing because why else would Falco's Titan look like that unless there was some sort of meaning behind it? And that's really what bothered me behind Falco's transformation. I mean, it was really cool and I liked it, but at the same time, I was like, but why? There's no reason for this. But now there is, and I like that.
Yeah, and I think based on what we learn here in this scene as well is like that apparently the Beast Titan has taken the form of or resemblance of different types of animals in the past. Obviously, we know Zeke's Beast Titan looks
Like an
sort of
orangutan.
like a monkey or yeah, like some kind of ape. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes sense, like especially with the name Beast Titan, like a
Mm-hmm.
beast. That's an animal, you know. For it to like for the different Beast Titan shifters to have resembled different animals.
Right.
So
I
some
it
like
also
some of them were birds.
yeah. I apparently at least according to Falco, right? He says there was
Yeah.
one that had flight. It reminds me of the moment or the one of the openings in the anime where I think it's the Beast Titan. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's the Beast Titan, and then behind him is like these all these animals, these images of like
Yeah.
Tyrannosaurus, whale. Was it the Beast Titan?
Well, I think it's both. Like so, that opening is weird to begin with,
Sure.
but it's the Sasageo opening for season two. It has the Beast Titan running, but also like I think it's like both. There's like huge animals running both with it and against it, if I
Oh, there's
recall.
against it as well. Oh, okay.
I think.
I thought it was just with the Beast Titan.
I mean, I could be wrong. The way I
I
remember
could be
it
wrong
though
as well.
is whatever though. The way I always interpreted that was basically that, well, we see some titans running around and also animals from like prehistoric and present day that also could be considered titans because they are titanic. They're
Mm,
huge. They're big. You know, there were
sure.
giraffes, dinosaurs,
Mm-hmm.
whales. You know, big
Whales,
animals.
right?
They are titans in a manner of speaking. So that's kind of how I interpreted that. But this is also an interesting thing, especially since the Beast Titan was definitely in that opening. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, very
So
interesting.
maybe Isayama had known that from the very beginning, potentially.
Maybe.
Well, at least when he conceived the Beast Titan, that the reason why it's called the Beast Titan is not because it's furry, but because it takes on characteristics of certain animals. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just. To me, that's what came to my mind when I was reading it.
Right. Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. That's super interesting. Yeah, and at the same time, like thinking realistically about it, I kind of doubt Isayama would give the anime, especially like the opening animators, kind of that information,
hmm
or whoever was in charge of that. It feels like he wouldn't.
I mean, it could have been just like this is called the Beast Titan. They're like, okay, put a bunch of beasts there, big beasts there.
Right. Yeah. No, but that's still definitely interesting. Like it could be interpreted as as those animals being beasts, but also as my initial thought was just as them
Oh
being
yes, yes. Your
titans.
thought is yeah, good as
But I
well.
think both make sense though, and especially now with this knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting. And it's also interesting what we get to know about potentially more detailed about the powers of the female Titan, about it
Yeah,
potentially being having an easier time adapting other Titan powers.
I think it's really cool.
It's pretty obvious that all Titans have that ability. Any Titan shifter, any of the nine, can gain powers to some extent from the other
Mm,
Titan powers. We already saw Aaron gaining the armor ability
right.
when he bit into that bottle of armor liquid. um, so I think that much is clear. But potentially though that the female Titan has an easier time adapting that
Mm-hmm.
because we've seen her using armor like crystallization very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably gained that through consuming some kind of armor Titan thing. And she also was able to kind of call Titans toward her, similar to how a royal founder would be able to control Titans.
Yeah.
And well, and Zeke not being a founder, but he's royal blooded.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, regarding the scream ability, I'm thinking like lately at least I've started to think that that ability might not be necessarily tied to the founding Titan, but rather just to the royal blooded Titans, and that it's more powerful with the founder, but
Mm,
any royal blooded user can do it because obviously Z can do it with those who
right.
have his spinal fluid specifically.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But it's interesting. Obviously, it's more efficient with a founder because they could control any Titan, not just the ones who consume their spinal fluid, and they stuff like that. But I think still any royal blooded person could do that. And I mean, I know back in the day, or not necessarily too far back, but relatively far back, I remember hearing some theories about ooh, what if Annie is of royal blood? And
Hmm.
that's why she's able to do the scream ability, which at this point, obviously, we have no reason to really suspect that, but I still think
Yeah.
it's worth considering, especially since all royal-blooded people we've seen, at least lately, have had blonde hair and blue eyes.
Hmm. Good
Uh,
point.
I think at least. I could be wrong about this, but it's well,
Well,
Historia's father and siblings weren't.
yeah, he had black hair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's probably nothing that we need to worry ourselves with.
It's a good point to bring up. I guess we'll just keep that in mind.
Right? Exactly. It's something that's kind of been in the back of my head for a while, but not nothing that I really put too much stock into.
Yeah.
And so one more thing for this scene that at first I didn't like too much. I thought it felt forced or too convenient. Was this thing about Falco having remembered this dream very
Hmm.
conveniently for this moment, you know? It felt somewhat like a Deus Ex Machina to me when I read it the first time, and I still don't blame anyone for thinking of it that way, because I know some people I've been talking to
Hmm.
kind of see it that way and they don't like it for that reason, which I think is fair. However, a way that I kind of was able to view it that made me more okay with it and that I think makes sense is that, first of all, this situation here, like this current boat ride for these characters, is kind of the first break that Falco is getting since he became the Jaw Titan.
Yeah.
He hasn't really had any time to, get his mind straight or anything like that ever since he got the Jaw Titan. Uh,
Hmm.
like, yeah, they had the previous boat ride, but he was unconscious for most of that. And the moment he woke
Hmm.
up, he was distraught by the fact that Magath was dead. And, there was a lot in his mind even on the first boat ride. But this current boat ride, he has an easier time, I think, getting a little bit more settled down and, to, really clear his mind. So with that in mind, I think it makes sense for this to be the situation, to be the moment where he remembers that dream. And
Yeah.
secondly, and probably a little bit more strongly, I believe that, well, seeing as it was a dream that he had about, flying above the clouds, well, dreams are easy to forget after you wake up from them.
Sure.
And so, like, it's not every time that you remember a dream immediately after waking up. It might take a little
Yeah.
while for you to remember. And he remembers it now somewhat shortly after they saw that plane fly away.
Hmm.
And I think I
Oh,
think
good
I
point.
think it would make sense for him to, seeing the plane fly off into the sky like a bird, that kind of sparks that, makes him remember the dream that he had. Because I can definitely, like, relate that to myself. Like, when I dreamed something at some point, and then I could go, like, for most of the day and not remember what I dreamt, and then, like, something might happen in the evening, and I'll be like, wait, I had a dream about something similar to this last night.
Hmm.
Like, seeing, I think
Right.
potentially, seeing the plane fly away could have been potentially the spark that made Falco remember the dream that he had about flying as a beast titan.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point you bring up. I totally see why people would think it's a De Ex Machina or whatever,
Mm.
kind of a thing. Um, but I feel like people will throw that kind of term around when something happens that they don't expect that seems like a little too convenient. But at the same time, you gotta be. I think you gotta be a little open minded to things and realize that sometimes not everything is gonna be like perfectly to how you're gonna imagine it in my mind. So for this instance, I think you bring some excellent points about the dreams, and what I got out of it is when he was unconscious
Mm.
when after transforming and they were on the boat going to Odiha. That is when he had that dream, is what I'm thinking. And
Mm.
when he woke up, he always told Magus, so obviously it wasn't you know crucial for him to bring it up. But maybe the boat was what sparked him, and then he was talking to Gabby. It's like, I remember this dream, and so
Mm.
then they start talking, and then they come up with this plan, this idea.
Right.
So I think it's definitely possible, like you said. I guess one thing you could say is, well, why didn't he say that the flying boat is what sparked this, the dream or the memory for me? I mean, I guess, yeah, that would have been nice, but at the same time, like, is it really needed?
Yeah,
Not really.
exactly. I think, and Isayama does a lot of things where you kind of have to read between the lines, and everything isn't written on your nose. You gotta work for it a little bit as a reader, and I personally enjoy that, and that's one of the big reasons why I enjoy doing this podcast so much,
Yeah,
so we can discuss it.
for sure.
Uh,
And it's not uncommon for Titan holders to have memories of the past.
Absolutely. This is a little bit of a special case, though, due to it being a Beast Titan's memory and not a Jaw Titan's memory. But at the same time, it makes sense since he consumed Zeke's blood.
True, that's a good point. It was a Beast Titan, right? That's important caveat to mention. But yeah, Zeke's fluid though. So
Right. Right.
Zeke's fluid. That's Zeke's spinal fluid.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would enjoy Zeke's fluid.
Oh
Anyway,
no! Stop.
I mean, Zeke would never give anyone his fluids because he's anti-birth.
All right. Well, it was great having the podcast. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm the one who said it. I'm the one to blame.
You started it.
I know.
I only continued it. Regardless.
Yeah.
Want to move on to the final scene?
Yeah. I just real quick. I personally am excited to see where it goes from here. With them, I don't know if we'll see them next chapter. We could, but it could possibly be, not for a couple more chapters, that they come in eventually. If they do, if their
Flying
plan goes,
in.
yeah. If it does go according to plan, oh man, I can't wait. So yeah, that's just, and also Kiyomi could potentially, I don't know if she'll die, but the boat's gonna be potentially sunk, so
Exactly. Yeah. That was an
probably not
interesting
gonna
thought.
not gonna see her again.
Maybe.
Maybe not till the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be interesting to see. And like how and also like it's not even obviously we don't know for sure if this flying titan thing is even going to work right now. It might not.
True, it might not. I might be premature in my I called it kind of
But
thing. But
but at the same time, like at this point, after them having had this conversation, it would be kind of disappointing if it didn't work.
I agree.
I was wrong about the parents of the warriors having died. To
Woohoo!
the rumbling.
I mean, so I was convinced that they were still alive.
You were.
But at the same time, I did say in one of my predictions that they would be out on sea and Annie would see them. So I was wrong about that. I did not expect them to be on a train heading towards, Fort Salta. Like, what?
Right.
Wow, that's convenient, maybe?
No, but I think it makes sense because they knew there were flying crafts there, or like
Good point.
aircraft
Yeah, that's
there.
right. They mentioned that. Yeah, that's true.
So it makes sense for them to go somewhere where they'll be able to take a vehicle that will be safe from the rumbling. Mm-hmm. So it in hindsight, it makes perfect sense for them to go there.
I'm just glad they're alive. Like,
Oh yeah.
I know we talked last time. It's like, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be great to see their deaths, but I personally like if we do see them die. I like the high stakes here. I think it just brings more drama to the story than just having them die off screen with and the way the last time we saw them just it was kind of a cliffhanger, like, oh, did they escape or not?
Yeah.
And to not show if they had or not just seemed off to me. But
True. That's absolutely true. But it's also like the way it seems right now is that Fort Salta is going to be where the big climax is going to happen.
I guess so.
Like,
I'm really curious why. I mean, I know the flying ships are there, but it almost seems like could there be another reason why it has to be Fort Salta? It's a very interesting landmark in and of itself.
Salta backwards is Atlas, and Atlas in Greek mythology is a Titan who was, took part in the Titan War in Greek mythology, which, sounds kind of like the Great Titan War and blah, blah, blah. I think there's, resemblances and, references. Not necessarily any symbolic things, but just...
Sure.
References to things that have to do with Titans. Which I think is kind of interesting, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fort, it's a place to battle.
Yeah, I guess you got to battle somewhere.
And there's a bunch of airships here that well, the way it seems, they will help out in the battle by dropping bombs on the rumbling. And actually, another thing that I thought of just now when I'm seeing Aaron's Titan here in this final
Mm-hmm.
scene is that when Armin drew the picture of Aaron's Titan on the floor of the plane in the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
chapter, he and they were kind of speculating on where could Aaron be.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Armin didn't draw the wires. You know, the wires from like the elbows and going up to the
True.
thing above the spine there, which in previous podcasts I theorized could be leading to where he has the crystal, like a Warhammer type crystal, kind of on the spine there, kind of
Mm-hmm.
where the wire ends, which was my theory back then. I guess it still is my theory about that
Yeah.
possibility at least.
It's possible that Peak, because it was Peak who was describing it to him, right? It's possible that Peak didn't see the wires or that wire.
Exactly. You know,
Um,
yeah, it's a very thin thing,
mm-hmm.
so for
And
sure.
maybe when they get closer to it, they're like, oh, the wires. Oh, that's where Aaron is potentially.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
I guess just to bring up, where are Armin and all of them? Where is the seaplane? Because I guess like I'm confused where Odiha was versus where Fort Salta is.
So I could be. I mean, I don't have the maps in front of me right now, and I definitely could be misremembering. But just spontaneously in my mind, if I'm trying to remember where those things were, it's basically I think or I think Oriha is kind of Turkey-ish,
Oh,
like around there, or like
really?
or maybe like Egypt, like that
Oh,
general
okay.
vicinity.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
and then Fort Salta is like central southern Africa, something like that. But I absolutely could be mistaken, so don't quote me on this.
Okay.
So it's still like a relatively long flight.
Well, yeah. I guess to me that means that since the Titans were able to get to Odiha before they got to Salta, Salta is farther away than Odiha is from where they started crushing.
Right. It also depends on what route they took. They could have also, gone not necessarily a straight line,
That's true.
potentially,
That's true.
but
Especially, well, yeah.
it's
I mean,
hard to say though.
he has the Salta, can't Fort Salta in mind potentially. I mean,
That's true.
when when Yelena pointed that out, that seemed to be
Mm,
his target.
you're
But
right. You're right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's always hard to speculate on like speeds and distances
Yeah,
and
where they are.
scales,
I
like
know.
especially. I think Isayama hasn't been very accurate when it comes to scale and stuff like that throughout the
I mean, it's
story.
hard. It's hard.
It is absolutely. I don't blame him for it, but
Um,
yeah.
I do you think that Armin and company will be able to get here in time to see this bombing happening, or to potentially save the Eldian people here, or are they going to come fly in and just see it just destroyed?
No, as I said before, I'm relatively convinced that this will be the final climax showdown place. So I think
Mm-hmm.
they'll get here before it's all over. I mean, surely, I mean, some stuff can go down before they get here, but I think there's still
Right.
going to be stuff to do here when they get here. So potentially next chapter. I guess that, honestly, there's not too much to talk about left in the actual chapter here, unless you had anything.
I mean, no, not really. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You feel the dread, and it's
Yeah,
it's interesting to see where the Eldians are there and it's with family Marleyans or so. But
absolutely.
um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
about it.
So going into speculations about predictions, I think it's a pretty good possibility that the plane crew will get to Fort Salta next chapter.
Hmm.
As I said before, like they'll get here before Fort Salta has been trampled. I think
Yeah.
because I think this is where everything will come to a close in some way. But yeah, we'll see how that happens. And another thing is, let's say they do kill Aaron, like just straight up Just putting it simply, they kill Eren, and Eren is no longer in control of the Founder. Just take all of these colossal wall titans into consideration. They won't be under Eren's control anymore, but they will become like just regular pure titans after that. They will just keep on walking around the earth wanting to eat humans like a normal titan does. That's still going to be a huge problem. Killing Eren doesn't end this. Oh my gosh. Right?
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. So you have to either get Eren to stop it or kill every last one of them.
Yeah, and there's like thousands.
Yeah, I mean either way, you're asking a lot.
Right. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how
I hope he pulls it off. I know in Isayama we trust, but man,
yeah,
I hope he pulls it off.
Yeah. Oh man, and unless maybe somehow they find a way to revert these wall titans back into the humans that they once were, like unless they somehow find a way to do that, it's going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not for the next chapter, but that's like just a speculation for like the end of the story.
The next volume.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because at this point we most likely have 5 more chapters, assuming each chapter is going to be the same length at least. I think it's safe to assume 5 more chapters.
Because next chapter would be the end of this volume, correct?
Exactly.
Which, man, I am excited to see what that is.
Oh
my gosh.
Yes.
I'm expecting one of the biggest moments in the series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not like setting myself for failure, but I think we could get something really amazing.
Yeah, and that's also a reason why I think, seeing as the next chapter will be the last chapter of a volume, I do think that the main gang is going to get to Fort Salta during the next chapter and spend some time there, fighting / interacting with Eren. Something, there's gonna be some serious shit going down.
Oh yeah. And I'm excited. I agree for the most part with your predictions. I don't know if I can disagree with anything. I think they will get there. I'm hoping sooner rather than later. But I hope. I feel like they will get there. As to, them on the plane, I'm not sure how Armin's gonna handle this. It feels like the burden of decision is on his shoulders. And when I was reading the chapter, I felt like he was gonna pull through it and handle it well. But as we were discussing it, I was looking at his face there. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it will turn out well. It's just, it's a big decision for him, and I'm hoping that he's able to come up with a solution that he feels comfortable, where he doesn't live with regrets. So I don't know. It's going to be a big moment, and whether they talk it out or maybe Armin has to rally the troops, so to speak, in some way. Maybe that's going to be this next chapter as well. I'm not sure, but either way, he's got a big choice to make, and I wonder if that's going to happen next chapter or in one of the future chapters.
Right. I think, I'm definitely sticking to my just pretty general, not super interesting prediction about them, the plane getting to Fort Salta next chapter, and there's going to be shit going down. Like, other than that, usually a lot of the episodes we've done when we've been talking about predictions, I've talked a lot about me wanting more focus on Historia, getting her point of view in more detail and just getting inside of her head more. This month, I'm not necessarily going to ask for that for the next chapter, because I don't really see that being a thing that we get next chapter. Then of course watch that be exactly what we get. But
I know
that happened to Steven when he was.
It did.
Every time he was like, "Oh, we're gonna get Levi next chapter," and then the one time he says, "No, I'm not gonna say Levi next chapter," then that exact thing happened. We got Levi that chapter. That was so funny. But
it would be amazing if we do get Historia this next chapter. But I'm with you. I don't think it's gonna happen. I, I I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't think the flow of the story is going that way right now. But
Right. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
he'll surprise us and it goes another direction. But
Yeah. But I'm gonna stand firm on no Historia focus next chapter. That's my final word on that.
sounds good.
So, do you have any other speculations for the next chapter?
Yeah, not a whole lot, just because I feel like you, where we're reaching the climax, or reaching like a pivotal moment
Hmm.
in the story where Armin and company and Aaron will collide in a
Yeah.
sense at Fort Salta. I'm wondering if the Eldians and the train will survive. I'm kind of hoping that they do, just to have some sort of moment with Reiner and
Hmm.
his family. That'd be nice. And when Annie comes to see her father there, uh, that would be good. But who knows? I think I'm on the side of they'll make it to Fort Salta, and then they'll maybe potentially meet up there.
Right.
I guess my last prediction that I want to say is, when they're trying to figure out where Aaron or Zeke could be, I think they figure out where Zeke is, and
Hmm.
that is the reveal, like the
Right.
cliffhanger or something like that,
That would
is
be. Mm,
they find Zeke.
I like that.
So
I definitely like that. Zeke's whereabouts, wherever that is,
hmm
and yeah, at this point, it's probably with Aaron.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of taking Levi's word to heart that he's somewhere on
Mm,
the body. I know it's not set in stone, but
mm,
that's my thinking, is that he's there.
right, and I'm also leaning to that, like mostly, like, and if it's not that, he's dead, but yeah, I'm definitely leaning mostly
Right.
toward that he is there.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Do you think next chapter? Do you think we'll actually see the Flying Titan next chapter?
Oh, so no, I don't actually. I think
Mm,
that, I mean, maybe we'll get a glimpse at it. Like, he'll have a couple pages of them flying. Maybe I feel like it'd be more impactful if it comes a couple chapters down the line, and you know we just see them off in the distance while they're maybe fighting or something like that, and then there's Annie there, and
mm.
it's kind of emotional that way. Um, but I could be wrong. Maybe she appears automatically in here, but
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Like, so basically, at least the way we're thinking about it right now is next chapter will have the plane crew get to Fort Salta,
Yeah,
and one or two chapters after that we'll have the Flying Titan crew get to Fort Salta.
yeah,
Potentially.
potentially.
I
That's my
guess
thinking.
because for them to arrive in the same chapter there, that would be kind of lame. That would be like, I guess it
I
would
don't.
be
Yeah,
a
I don't think it would.
bit too
The
weird.
timing would be off, unless Falco's flying speed is just incredible, which
Yeah, true.
I don't know,
Who
man.
knows? Who
I don't know
knows?
about that.
Yeah, yeah. This chapter gave us so much, like so many, like just things, like interesting things to speculate
Oh
and talk
yeah,
about.
for sure.
I really
You know,
like that.
one last thing I want to bring up is something that I've already mentioned, but
Mm?
just kind of tie it in more, is Ymir,
Right. Oh yeah.
and how we've seen her a couple chapters ago watching. I forget what was the kid's name. Um,
Ramsey and Halil.
yeah, seeing their death, like she was kind of, or at least Ramsey like saw her right before he got
Yeah.
squished, in a sense. So I don't know, like there's really some interesting things going on with her. Is
Mm.
she the one controlling it? Are Aaron and her just one mind at this point? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of evidence pointing to that, but
Uh huh.
you know, I don't know. I guess it's less of a prediction and more just to keep your eye out for that. I mean, we may find out something pretty big here in the coming chapters
Yeah.
regarding her and potentially the centipede spine thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh God. There's a lot to keep track of
Hmm.
at this point, and also the little not overly popular but still somewhat popular theory about the afterlife that we were talking about last month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of holding on to that maybe that is actually true, and that if Zeke isn't with Eren, then maybe we'll have Hanji meet up with him in the afterlife or something like that. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
It's it's a bit out there.
yeah, I don't commit to it, but you never know. I mean, I've said all sorts of crazy things on this podcast. Not saying, well, that implies that maybe what you said was crazy. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
no,
is,
but it is crazy. I agree with you. It is crazy.
I don't know. I just,
Valhalla is kind of crazy.
eh.
I think I've probably said everything I wanted to. How about you?
I think I'm good.
Awesome. Well then, thank you everyone for listening to yet another episode of Titan Teatime. You can find more of James' stuff over on Intensity on YouTube, where he covers video game topics and does like video discussions and stuff on interesting Nintendo things and stuff. And you can find me on YouTube and SoundCloud as Leon Marius, where I compose music, both instrumental and with lyrics and whatnot. The music that you're probably hearing tuning in right now, kind of fading in, is a song that I've composed. And well, we'll see you next month, where we will talk about the last chapter of this volume, chapter 134. See you then. Bye bye.
Goodbye. My roommate's taking a shower right now, so.
We can take a break.
Every time, it's like, oh boy, James is recording. I'm gonna take a shower.